Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where the trades say that Avatar 2 is just getting started. And that might very well be the case. But understandably, there are many of you who want a verdict, even if it's a temporary one, right out of the gate. Well, my judgment is that this is a bit of a disappointment for Disney, I'm sure, and slightly embarrassing for Jimmy Cameron. When are these Hollywood heavyweights, by the way, going to stop posturing themselves into a corner? You did it to yourself, Jim. You did it to yourself. Because while Avatar 2 certainly has posted strong numbers, they are not the biggest of the year. Even its big worldwide debut is second to Multiverse of Madness. Like when you first see the number, you're like, wow. But then you see that Multiverse of Madness had a bigger debut and that couldn't get to $1 billion, and you're like, less wow. The first Avatar didn't open as big, right? But I think that, nobody knew that it was Avatar. But of course, now this is coming to the table as the sequel to the most successful movie of all time. So it has recognition factor and therefore is expected to perform better. It did perform better. It did open much bigger. But then, of course, you also have to factor inflation in there. And since it's been so long, that's an awful lot of inflation. Now, yes, again, the first film didn't post the biggest opening for the year. And it went on to become the most successful film, not just of its own year, but of all time. Top Gun Maverick didn't have the biggest opening of this year either. Yet, at this point, we'll see if Avatar can overtake it, Avatar 2, it is the year's biggest film. But it's not 2009, and James Cameron is operating in a very different marketplace, where movies have a lot more competition from streaming. People go to the movies differently. The audience is different. It's in terms of not just their habits, but their know-how. You guys are smarter and savvier than you were in 2009. Entertainment has become a lot more politicized and a much angrier space. I think that's a factor for sure. We're going to go into the details on all of this. And we're still dealing with the pandemic, even though some of you hate it whenever I mention that. But we're in fact in the middle of another surge, which is not only affecting domestic box office, but certainly worldwide. Definitely China, which was supposed to be big for Avatar 2. So as I said, let's discuss. And of course, as always, I'm curious to hear your thoughts down below. So outside of James Cameron's bluster, remember he was like, my movie has to make $2 billion but Deadline gave us an actual number. And apparently the word around Tinseltown is that Avatar: The Way of Water cost about $460 million before advertising. Now that's insane. That's insane. And what it means is that the movie does need to make about $1 billion, not $2 billion, but it does need to join the $1 billion club to break even. That's a ridiculous gamble for a studio, but of all the studios, the least so for Disney, because they're an empire and Avatar provides value for them far beyond the multiplex. Avatar has already become a driving factor for the Animal Kingdom theme park in Orlando, and as we all know, theme parks are huge revenue generators for the Disney company. It's interesting. I don't believe, have they built an Avatar Pandora anywhere else in any of their other theme parks? I don't believe so, now that I think about it, which is odd, since they usually do copy and paste lands across the globe. Maybe I hope they do now. Again, if we've been discussing, it's a phenomenal attraction. But they're going to even plus how Avatar is incorporated into the park going forward. They're taking over the Tree of Life outdoor show. I wouldn't mind if they changed the indoor 3D movie. It's been a Bug's Life for like forever. And I think maybe it would be a little bit better if they maybe made it Avatar in the inside of that Tree of Life as well. And surely Disney plans to expand Avatar the way they do all their other big franchises. It's interesting, though. I don't think Avatar is a big driver of merch. As I've told you, I think that their ride, Flights of Passage, is the best attraction I've ever been on. Haven't been on Rise of the Resistance yet because of the pandemic. But every time I get off that ride, you have to exit through the gift shop, and I've never wanted to purchase anything. And even though I like the new Avatar movie much more than the first, I still don't really want to buy anything from it. So I don't know if there's a merch play there, but I do feel that there's a Disney Plus play in addition to just having the films, but maybe they could do some kind of series. I could see that maybe. And as some of you have pointed out, they are in fact doing an Avatar video game. Some of these things were put into effect before the Disney acquisition of Fox, but Disney will still recoup the benefits. So Avatar is a franchise, and I still think a viable one. Avatar 2 also looks to be a big awards play once again this year, and as part of Disney's incredibly aggressive blockbuster-driven overall slate for 2022, the mouse is closing on $4 billion in worldwide box office receipts. So money-wise, Disney is good, and Avatar is part of that. I mean, we talk about whether these films are a disappointment, and you do have to factor in how much it costs to make them. Like, Disney is bringing in $4 billion worth of receipts at the box office, but how much did they spend on their 2022 slate? That's all, important as well. It's basic economics. I mean, this isn't just money coming in. But yes, Avatar has incredible audience scores. It's got that going for it. And while it's currently skewing a bit more male than Disney would probably like, as I told you, the female roles take a back seat this time around, its diversity demos are excellent. So it could very well leg out, as the saying goes in Hollywood. And it seems moviegoers are treating this 4-hour commitment like going to a Broadway show. Booking way in advance throughout the holiday season. Tickets are on sale all the way through January 5th. When are you going to plan to see Avatar if you didn't see it this opening weekend, or if you already have tickets to go and see it again, which I know many of you do? And because audiences want to make sure they get the best seats on the best screen possible. So on that note, one thing that Avatar 2 has already highlighted is that there aren't enough premium screens, especially since audiences have become much more savvy and know what the better experience is. Some of you actually DM'd me and asked me to help you select the best theater to see this on because you wanted to have, if you were going to take the time and spend the money, you wanted to experience it properly. However, there's much less availability to do that than to just see the movie. And as we look at another upcoming summer, we've been talking about this with June already, you have big blockbusters that can only secure premium screens for a single weekend, which is ridiculous. Surely the multiplex of the near future, I feel it should be the multiplex of today, should have 2 IMAXs, 2 Dolbys, and then a sprinkling of other options for smaller films and, just to offer a less expensive option. But I always see all blockbusters in IMAX or Dolby. I think, particularly in New York City, I do know that when I sometimes go to New Jersey, there are better options to see it on a regular screen. But it's just a better experience and, again, the way it was intended. Hollywood is becoming blockbuster driven, so theaters need to adopt the same mentality, especially since the name of the game now is coaxing audiences away from their big screen TVs, and you do that with premium screens. There are so many screens today where you're like, that's really not that much better than if I just watched it at home. Home offers a lot of other incentives like no disturbances. You can take the breaks that you want, watch it when you want, start it as late as you want. I saw some people who were so insistent on watching Avatar 2 on a premium screen, they were willing to start the movie at 11:30 p.m. That just shows you, again, that there aren't enough premium screens, that people would rather start the movie when they would get out at 3:30 or 4 in the morning rather than just see it on a regular screen. I think that's fascinating. Perhaps Avatar 2 would have opened bigger this weekend if more premium showtimes had been available, as most of them were sold out before the weekend even started, including 10 a.m. shows, 9 a.m. shows, and 11:30, 10 p.m. shows. So are you waiting for a premium screen? I'm curious as to what's going on with you personally. So why might Avatar 2 not leg out like the first film beyond the lack of premium screens? And also when the first Avatar came out, people were just like, what's this 3D, man? That's how new it was. Now people are like, okay, I know what 3D is. So how do I make sure that I experience it, because it's apparently so incredible, the way that I'm supposed to? More on that in a moment. So the first Avatar, just to refresh your memory, it only fell 2% in its second weekend. That's the bar for Avatar 2. Isn't that an incredible hold? We'll see. And it didn't drop more than 30% each weekend until it hit its 10th weekend. Wow! Now, first off, a lot of moviegoers simply don't believe the 3D has improved that much. You remember seeing the first Avatar, and you've gotten tired of 3D. And there are no other 3D titles for them to preview the movie in front of, where you already had a set of 3D glasses. They did preview it to press, but I even skipped that because it was at the same time of the Multiverse of Madness special screening for press, and I didn't want to make sure I had a good seat for that. So I was like, oh, see you later. I don't need to see this in 3D. I think that it would have perhaps been worth the investment for Disney to put a 3D extended look in front of fellow Disney flick, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, even paying for the glasses just for that preview and the added time of having to hand them out to moviegoers and dealing with all that. And or they maybe also should have done a behind-the-scenes special on ABC and then put it on Disney Plus to just really drive home. Instead of James Cameron just talking smack to everybody and, putting all like a negative bravado out there, what if he'd had taken a more positive approach and said, let me tell you how I've improved the 3D from over 10 years ago. I think that maybe would have been a better way to go instead of just take James Cameron's word for it, never bet against James Cameron. And I think that there is, again, a bravado to that some people have found off-putting. Then there's also similar, and we'll talk more about the anger and politicization in Hollywood in just a moment, but there's also similar underwater themes and long running times for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which audiences just came off of. And perhaps they don't feel that Avatar 2 is unique enough to get them back in the theater so quickly, especially also since during a difficult economic time, premium 3D is expensive for just one person, much less date night or an entire family. So James Cameron is saying you can't really enjoy Avatar: The Way of Water unless you see it in premium 3D, and he's asking people to spend $50 to $200 on a movie night. Right around the holidays when people have other expenses. Didn't think this one through, Jimmy, maybe. Then speaking of Marvel, James Cameron has upset a lot of Marvel fans, again, with all the trash talk he's been doing. And I've seen a noticeable number of people online rooting for the film to fail. And just as I said earlier in this very video, entertainment has become heavily politicized these days, and there's just a lot of hate in general out in the world. And a number of conservatives and just, fans also, like DC fans who are upset. People are upset with Disney for a number of reasons, and they're aggressively hounding all of the releases that come out from the mouse on social media, creating negative clouds that hang over these projects, whether they deserve them or not. I think Multiverse of Madness kind of escaped that, but it really started with Thor: Love and Thunder, which was right around the time that Bob Chapek was going up against Ron DeSantis, and I think it hasn't gone away. Top Gun Maverick, another, people are like, you waited too long to tell Avatar 2. Well, Top Gun Maverick has also had a very long break between movies, but I think that succeeded so wildly, not just because it's a great movie and a nostalgia play, which drove liberal and moderate ticket sales, but because conservatives embraced it for what they felt was more traditional storytelling. That really is frustrating to me and upsetting, because, it's an upsetting situation. But anyway, conservative moviegoers, in some cases, saw the film many, 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 many times in theaters. And keep in mind that that's usually a group that doesn't go to the movies at all. So in came this huge rush of people, a huge rush, again, not just on their own, but with repeat viewing, who suddenly materialized, whereas I think most movies make their money off of liberal and moderate moviegoers. The name of the game is to mobilize as many people as possible, and Top Gun Maverick played that game probably almost better than any movie ever, maybe except the last Avatar. But then there are all these other factors. And don't forget COVID! COVID is having yet another surge, surely scaring away some moviegoers from sitting in a theater for 4 hours. Even if you're willing to sit there, you certainly can't enjoy any snacks if you're a little bit nervous right now. And so 4 hours snackless is a tough sell. Plus, it's wreaking havoc, as I said, on China and the ability to go to the movies there, and that was supposed to be huge for Avatar 2. But at this rate, $500 million already, no real competition until Quantumania in February, very strong audience scores, and truly breathtaking VFX. I think with nothing to do between Christmas and New Year's, people will cave and check it out. Multiverse of Madness didn't get to $1 billion, despite an even better worldwide start, but there was competition. Other movies came into the space. There ain't nothing for you to do. And right now you're busy, but you're going to be bored in about a week. So I think that you'll go. So I think even if you currently are hating it and saying bad stuff about it, I think the combined word of mouth and you got nothing else to do, some of you will hold out, but some of you will go. So I think Avatar will cross $1 billion and potentially even go to maybe about 1.5. I think it has a chance of outmaneuvering Top Gun Maverick to be the biggest film of the year, just like it's stealing a lot of Top Gun Maverick's awards thunder. Top Gun Maverick's still getting nominated, but I think it's taking away the chance that Top Gun Maverick could actually win anything. I think those wins, if there are any, for a blockbuster will instead go to Avatar: The Way of Water. So it's a bit of a wake-up call for Cameron, if that's possible. He's not really the kind of guy who would want a wake-up call. Let's see if he plays the blame game or keeps it professional and digs himself into a deeper hole. But I still feel Avatar is a big brand for Disney, and we can all look forward to Avatar 3, which has already been filmed. But how about Avatar 4 and 5? James Cameron he said the first act of Avatar 4, and he doesn't say that he even wants to maybe continue directing these movies. And so there's a big question mark hanging over whether it's like a little bit like maybe that to talk about bravado putting you in a corner. It's like they said they were going to make 5 Fantastic Beasts. You don't do that, guys. Don't do that anymore, Hollywood, because it looks like we're not going to get 5 of either franchise. I wouldn't totally close the door on more Avatars just yet. I mean, maybe Cameron can find a way to bring down the cost significantly. He's got to. I think this is too big a spend. Per movie, it's ridiculous. And a way to truly energize the story so it feels very different and it's not just an advanced VFX play. That's only going to get him so far, and certainly not to 4 and 5 movies. And I still strongly believe, speaking of that technology, that other blockbusters should try out these advanced 3D effects, especially as streaming continues to be a siren call to keep audiences at home. There's definitely something here, definitely. But maybe it's driving the price up too much. That's very interesting. You know, you would think people would want the best experience no matter what, but will movies get to a point where they do price people out, especially when they're spending so much money every month on their streaming services? Oh, it's so fascinating. But you know, you could go into the loyalty programs. All the big multiplexes, theater companies offer a loyalty program now, and your Avatar ticket, even on a premium screen, 3D, would be at no extra cost. It's included, certainly at AMC in your three movies a month. This a week or a month, but yeah, or 3 at a time. I think you can hold 3 tickets at a time. So if you were an AMC Stubs member, it's not that expensive actually for you to go. As to the rest of the top 10, a lot of movies did take big hits this weekend as Avatar 2 not only entered the marketplace, but took over pretty much every screen. Certainly any one of note. Not just premium, but just big screens. In smaller films, The Menu and The Fabelmans fared the best as counter-programming. And to show how much damage streaming is doing, along with audience disinterest in what movies are being offered, there was so little money in the marketplace this weekend. 6 through 10 all came in at less than $1 million this weekend. That's just speaking of embarrassing. Over on streaming, let's start with Nielsen as usual, where there's some interesting stuff going on here. And a lot in different spaces. I like this a lot. It's not just the Netflix Disney Plus conversation. But Netflix is once again dominating the overall chart, with the one lone exception being the new season of Yellowstone, speaking of conservative audiences, and that's an acquired show on Peacock, like House of the Dragon on HBO Max. So that's not even all of Yellowstone's viewership. A lot of that is on Paramount Network, and then also a number of people buy a season pass on iTunes digitally and just get the episodes week to week there. So the show is actually doing much better than 8th place overall. Over on the originals chart, Andor has slipped a spot to 9th place, but at least it's still in the top 10 for its penultimate episode for season 1. And thankfully, Andor is starting to pick up awards nominations, which will help its image, the image of the show overall. And on the acquired chart, I wanted to talk about this today, not only because of Yellowstone, but White Lotus has shown up with the HBO Max part of its viewership. It's finally getting on the board with episode 4 of its second incarnation, giving it a grand total of 10 episodes overall. How unfair that it's counted as one when they say they're not a series, these aren't seasons, so it doesn't have to compete in the drama category. It's such a big cheat. But anyway, a number of people are getting into the show with the sizzling Italy trip, even catching up on Hawaii so they can join the rest of us on vacation week to week. That's one of the benefits of airing weekly, especially with just your second go-around, because people who didn't watch the first time feel they can catch up via binge. The first White Lotus was only 6 episodes, so if you see everyone talking about White Lotus 2 week to week, you can watch the first season in a week or two and then jump right in with everybody else. Now, over on the movies chart, while Hocus Pocus 2 was a juggernaut, speaking of nostalgia plays, Disenchanted not only couldn't even make it onto the overall chart, but didn't even top the movie chart itself. And there's Nope, the latest big screen flick to boost its own studio streaming service when it finally trickles down to that service. On Netflix's charts, no big movies here, with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio having a surprisingly muted debut in just 2nd place. Perhaps Cabinet of Curiosities was too close, and, maybe people felt they were a little Guillermo del Toro'd out, and also the film is darker, so it's not really for families, and it's not very Christmassy, so it's an awards time to release it for sure, But maybe if it starts getting nominations and wins, as it is, so far it's getting nominations, maybe it'll pick up an audience as it goes along. As you can see here, holiday movies are still dominating, including a Boss Baby special. Bullet Train has risen up to third place after only a mediocre debut last week, but it's getting traction on Netflix. And while 10th place and those numbers are pretty weak, it's still nice for Aubrey Plaza, who's having a very good year, of course, headlined by her turn on The White Lotus. Now with shows, Wednesday is still dominating, and now the third most watched Netflix show of all time, having just surpassed Dahmer. So it goes Squid Game, Stranger Things 4, and then Wednesday. That's amazing. That's fantastic. So where is season 2? Well, Deadline had a very interesting article late this week, pointing out that thanks to its acquisition of MGM, Amazon is actually now behind Wednesday, and it must really kill them that it's not on Prime Video. And as Amazon incorporates the running of MGM, this is the excuse that Deadline put out. They got to get all their ducks in a row, they have to have new executives take over, and that's what's slowing down the Wednesday renewal. The article has other industry insiders, not within Amazon, mind you, but other people saying, isn't it nice that Amazon is going to have all these hit shows via MGM on other networks and streaming services, sometimes on networks and then going to a different streaming service. Isn't that nice of Amazon? Isn't that nice of them? Aren't they so kind? I don't know. Have you ever met Jeff Bezos? I don't really say that's the way I would describe him. He, in fact, has been very aggressive in terms of streaming and saying that it's going to make it a priority for him. So let's see what Amazon does. I think that, the Wednesday team, by the way, is just moving ahead. They're like putting their blinders on and they're putting together the writer's room for season 2. They're like, let's just start going and see what happens. And I think it's unlikely that he's going to start a war with Netflix. I wonder what the deal is. Obviously, if season 2 wasn't built in, or this wouldn't be a question and they would have just renewed it already. We'll see if it's truly an executive shuffle, or maybe they are yoinking Wednesday over to Prime Video. I got to be honest with you. I would do it if I owned Prime Video. Streaming is war right now. And I would want that. I'd put it right next to The Boys. Thank you very much. I think it is worth noting, though, that Prime Video, while it's been able to make The Boys a huge hit, that took time. That took a lot of time. And quite frankly, I don't think Wednesday would be the massive hit it is today if it had debuted on Prime Video. And I feel The Boys would have been a bigger hit faster if it had been on Netflix. Or would it have just been the new Umbrella Academy? Streaming services have personalities. I don't know if Wednesday really fits on Prime Video, but if I were Jeff Bezos, I wouldn't care. I'd want that viewership. But don't worry, season 2 is coming somewhere. We'll see how this goes down. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Now, I'd be curious about all those other shows. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why Prime Video would be so kind when they're trying to really, and they have hit shows. They're really trying to bulk up their streaming presence. Now, right behind Wednesdays, you can see is the debut of Harry and Meghan Part 1, which interestingly, I think posted similar numbers to The Crown's Season 5 own debut just a few weeks ago. So it's either the same audience that just loves them some royal drama, or it's two separate but comparable audiences. We'll see if Harry and Meghan has the same staying power as The Crown Season 5, which you can also see is itself still in the top 10 after, a number of weeks. And on iTunes, holiday movies rule here as well, although I'm thrilled to see The Woman King right back on top now that it's available to rent for just $6. People have been merciless and very unfair to that movie. I do agree that it maybe made some bad choices in terms of how it represented history, but it's such a phenomenal film that I don't think that should be, I think that while it maybe deserves an asterisk next to it, I don't think it deserves to be completely destroyed as some people are trying to do. So I'm very glad that despite all that negativity, which again is the world we live in these days, people are still giving it a chance. It's a phenomenal film. But this chart isn't that different from last week, except you can see that Avatar is popped on there for everyone who does not have Disney Plus, where it's again back on the service. As for this coming weekend, it is Christmas itself, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. That's crazy. That'll be really interesting to see what it does to the box office, because Christmas, whenever it lands, is traditionally a very big movie-going day. Not Christmas Eve so much, but Christmas Day, particularly here in the West, I know a lot of you, even in Europe, are like, you guys go to the movies on Christmas? It's big here in North America. We go to the movies on Christmas. What's your Christmas Day movie that you have planned? But because of that, Movie Math will be going up, even if I was willing to abandon my family and work on Christmas Day. It would be pointless because we need to see those Christmas Day numbers. So Movie Math next week and with New Year's will go up on Monday. So we do have some big movies left. We do have some big movies still hitting theaters. On Wednesday, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I'm so excited. That's such a good movie, as you know. I love that so much, and it's a Best Animated Feature contender. I hope that does really, really well. So that's Wednesday. I wonder if people are so against Avatar in some places. I wonder if they'll rally behind Puss in Boots. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Puss in Boots can actually inflict some damage. Then there's Babylon on Friday, which is also 3 hours long. That's crazy, another huge commitment. And as I told you, some people were like, what do you mean it has bad word of mouth, Grace? Come on. I told you. Bad word of mouth. There it is. There's the RT score. Not a good award season for Margot Robbie after Amsterdam. Whew. And then also the Whitney Houston bio, that review embargo lifts on Wednesday. And I've already seen it, so I'll be posting my review then. Then, in limited release, there are these are all awards contenders, but Living, Women Talking, and Netflix's The Pale Blue Eye will all hit a handful of theaters as well. Then on streaming, Netflix is busy trying to make you stay at home this week. It's very aggressive. Wow, what a slate. Wednesday, Emily in Paris Season 3. Friday, Glass Onion reemerges on Netflix only. They've been advertising it that way. There was some talk they might put it back in theaters. The advertisement, I was watching Saturday Night Live last night, and they had a Glass Onion ad, and they were like, the movie everybody's talking about, only on Netflix. And I was like, there it is. And then on Sunday, Christmas Day itself, you have the Witcher Blood Origin miniseries, which is just 4 episodes, as well as Matilda the Musical, the film adaptation of the hit Broadway show. I saw it on Broadway. Actually, it started out in the West End and then moved to Broadway. I saw it on Broadway. Incredible. So good. I can't wait to watch it again. And it was actually released in the UK in theaters a few weeks ago, and I know it did very well there, and a number of you tweeted me that you really loved it. So that could be quite big. That could be very big on Sunday. On Christmas Day, I think a lot of people, are you going to go to the multiplex, or maybe you're going to stream something? It's a big movie-going day, but not necessarily in theaters these days. Fascinating, especially also with all these COVID problems. And then outside of Netflix, Prime Video. Speaking of Prime Video, they have season 3 of Jack Ryan, which it's now been made official that they have one more season to go. That'll be their final season with John Krasinski. And so that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of Avatar 2's debut? Is it 2009 all over again? Or will things play out differently? What has been your experience, and what are your plans? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.